What's good, everyone? This is Dr. Nee Darko. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below so that you're always up to date on the new uploads as well as alerts on this show. The other thing that you can do to help build this community is make sure you leave a comment below. Let us know what you like, what you don't like about the show, and ultimately, let us know who's winning these arguments, because I need to know that I'm beating Renee in these debates. Run the tape. Me and Jordan, we're vibing right now, and he's ready to go. So we got Dr. Jordan Grumet, and the last time you were on this show, we had you talk about your book that came out, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
2 years ago. And now you have a new book that's coming out January 7th. It's called The Purpose Code: How to Unlock Meaning, Maximize Happiness, and Leave a Lasting Legacy. But if you guys, depending on how we cut this, this episode, we're literally going through a therapy session where we're talking about being part of the sandwich generation. How are you finding purpose? Particularly Dr. Jordan is 51. I'm 46. We're just, at a point in our lives where like the purpose that we had while we were trying to go after and become doctors is way different than the purpose that you have right now. Right. So let's talk about this book, because I'll be very honest, everyone. I haven't gotten a chance to read this book yet. I got it, Dr. Jordan. Next time I got to be on the end. You got to let me get the book I got to get the pre-order of this book, but that doesn't mean we can't talk about it. So welcome to Docs Outside the Box, man.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for the conversation.
Yeah. So I got a lot of questions about this book because I can read from the description. I can read from your video. I've listened to you on other podcasts and so forth. Who's this book for? The Purpose Code. Who is this book for?
So this book is for a lot of different populations, but today I'd like to talk about us, right? So we are right in the middle of it. Like a lot of us have kids, a lot of us have aging parents, a lot of us have kind of figured out a work enough to be like, okay, I'm not like I was in residency and a young attending where I didn't know what I was doing and I was just craving the knowledge. We're all almost at this place of what I'd call burnout. Like work is exhausting and difficult. Our kids are tiring. Our parents have their own issues.
Preach.
And we're looking at each other, we're looking at our spouses, or we're looking at our friends going, what happened to me? Like, where did the me go when I became the conduit for all these other people's needs, or I became the conduit of my job and my employer? And so a lot of us are sitting here going, this isn't what I dreamed about when I went to medical school. This isn't what I dreamed about when I got married. This isn't what I dreamed about when I had kids. And so we all have to look in the mirror and say, okay, our life has pivoted. Things have changed. We're not hungry like we were when we were 20 and we just wanted to get that MD or we just wanted to get married. Life has changed on us. And a lot of us are sitting here going, well, who am I now? And where is that me time? And if I do happen to get a little bit of that me time, what does that look like? Like, what do I do with that? How do I do something that feels meaningful and purposeful and kind of fills me up a little bit? Because right now I'm being stretched thin.
Do you think it's, because I feel like a lot of folks who have to ask themselves that questions are people who either are forced into retirement, right? Because that's a discussion of people who do the same thing for several years, for several decades. And then all of a sudden they got to go into retirement either in their late 50s or 60s. And now it's like, well, what do I do? Or people who go through a midlife crisis. And yesterday I had to get some keys made for my parents' house. Went to Home Depot. This gentleman, a little bit older guy, kind of bent over, hunched over, is filling the shelves. And I'm like, hi, sir. Like, I'm looking to get keys made. And he said, yeah, I can help you with that. He's like scurrying over and he makes it to the key machine and we talk. And I need to get 4 keys done. It takes an hour to get it done. Lo and behold, this guy is 80 years old. His wife died about 3 years ago. And his purpose afterwards is something that he struggled with. But it's not that Home Depot gave him purpose again, but he just needed something to kind of connect with. He needed some people to connect to. And like I said, it doesn't take an hour to make 4 sets of keys, but we had that connection where we were talking about, or at least he was giving me advice on different things. And it was really interesting to just think about, like, what do we do when we get to a point where like what we've attained doesn't fulfill us anymore, right? Or who we're with doesn't fulfill us anymore. We have to figure it out on our own. I was thinking about that with that gentleman. But then go ahead, please, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, the first question you asked is, is this something that usually happens like either when you're forced to retire or you hit retirement age? I think we all hit this multiple times in life and we just call it burnout.
Okay.
And we say, man, I'm exhausted, or I'm burnt, or I need some time off, or I need a long vacation. And then we kind of do that. We keep ourselves busy enough or relaxed enough to feel like the crisis is over. And then we go back to doing all the same things. But the problem is, a lot of times we haven't actually made some space for ourselves, right?
That is so true. That is so true.
We all do it. And, so let's look at this positively. We're doing this because we have family to support and things to do. And this idea of, oh my gosh, like maybe work isn't fulfilling me as much as I thought it would be. And to walk away from that and start doing something else, or even to pursue a hobby or something different, sounds exhausting. Like we're already tired, right? We already want the week on the beach just to recover. This idea of doing the emotional work to start finding some new things that fill us up just isn't on most of our calendars. And so if you want the same result, you do the same things. And so we burn out, we take the week off, we go start seeing the therapist. Maybe we pay for some extra help at the house because things are exhausting. But then we pretty much go back to doing the same thing. And so eventually we get the same result, which means every year, every other year, every few years, we find ourselves totally exhausted and feeling like something needs to change, but not having the energy to do something new. And this is where we really get into that conversation about purpose. And I love you talking about this gentleman, because for our whole life, we think people are purpose. We think our jobs are purpose. But this gentleman decided he would do something that was just kind of fun and filled him up. He's like, I'm going to go work at Home Depot. It puts me around people. I kind of like doing mechanical things maybe. So I'm going to do that. And what happens is he goes and does little things that light him up. I call it little P purpose. The difference between big P purpose, which I think is anxiety provoking, is this idea of doing these big audacious things that are goal oriented, that are going to change the world. But this gentleman you're talking about did something what I call little P purpose, is process oriented. He's like, I'm 80. I don't have to prove myself anymore. I'm just going to go do something I kind of like doing. But in the meantime, doing something that sounds kind of small, he interacted with you. And maybe that was the guy you needed to talk to that day to give you some perspective. So he's just doing his thing, doing something he enjoys the process of, something that lights him up a little bit. He's 80. He lost his spouse. He's just looking for something that fills him up a little bit. But in the process, he's actually having some impact, because now he's run into you and he has all this wisdom to impart on you. And you're at a place in life where you might need to hear that wisdom. And all of a sudden, we're starting to learn that kind of that big, audacious, big P purpose we always talk about. It's like, I'm going to change the world. Sometimes what we actually need is little P purpose, and we actually connect to more people and change the world more. And so I think that's what you're seeing there, is someone who, by the time they're 80 and they lost their spouse, finally let go of this kind of big goal-oriented purpose and just started doing stuff that seemed cool. And the question is, especially for people like you and me who are right in the middle of burnout, who are feeling like we're losing ourselves, who feel stretched impossibly between our parents and our kids and our job, how do we create a little space to get that feeling that elderly guy gets when he goes to Home Depot, that I'm doing something that's a little bit important here, a little bit exciting here, and maybe it's causing me to interact with other people? Like, how do we start building that into our life now? Because I'd hate for you to have to wait till you're 80 to start doing these little things, what I call little P purpose, this process-oriented things that actually give you some of the energy to start dealing with the harder stuff. Like when you start feeling like, okay, life is hard, got problems with my kids, got problems with my parents, got problems with my job, but at least I have this space that feels good where I do something that I connect with. Maybe I impact some other people in a different way. That's what's going to help you get through the burnout, right? Because we're not going to just leave our job. Like, that's silly. Like, if you're a surgeon and you're busy and you're burnt out, the likelihood you're going to leave your surgeon job and totally do something new that you're passionate about, that's pretty unlikely. But the idea is to reconnect with what you like about being a surgeon. And sometimes part of doing that is developing yourself in other ways, taking some of the pressure off your job, for instance, to be that big thing that lights you up, and starting to do some of these other smaller versions of purpose.